Thanks everyone for having us here. I was hoping to get out to a wonderful foot event a couple of meetups ago, and it hasn't happened yet, but I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Laura Payne, and I work for the Bank of Montreal. And I also advise Border Sector and help run B-sides and do random other security-related things. But I'm not the important person here. I'm just going to ask the questions. The important people are on our panel today. So I'm really pleased to introduce first Sarah Question over on your far left. And Sarah, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now?
Can you guys hear me? I didn't switch it on. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I am actually in the middle of a transition, an exciting one. I'm coming out of a year in forensics team, and now I'm entering a research project. And we're not talking about the company we're with, but I will tell you a little bit about myself. I've been coding since I was 13, and by choice. So yeah, I've done pen tests, I've done forensics, I've done coding, I've done GRC, unfortunately. And pretty much everything there is to do in IT and IT security world so far.
Awesome, welcome. Next, we have Kim Crawley. And I first met Kim last year at our B-Sides TO conference. Kim, you want to give a quick intro to what you're doing these days?
Yeah, I write for a few different blogs run by CM vendors such as Alien Vault. I've been contributing to Tripwire's State of Security blog for a while now, and starting next week I'm also going to be writing for Silence's blog, and they're actually going to do a huge web magazine relaunch in August, and I'm very excited about that. And so yeah, I focus on writing and research these days, and everything is moving so quickly that it's a lot of work and it's a lot to keep up with. So it's great to be here.
Great. And third with us today, but not third in the list by any stretch, we have Lisa Belanger with us from Toronto Police Services, right? You want to tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Okay, so anyone hear me? So basically my background, so I've been with the service for 17 years. I started my career in Regent Park area, so all of us have to start in uniform, right? So over the 17 years, I've mostly done investigative work. So for 5 years, I did child pornography, child exploitation work, and that's where my interest grew more in the cyber area. And what I did during that time was I had to write a lot of search warrants, and I had to take cases through courts, which meant, you know, everything from explaining to a judge what a happy face is, right, to explaining chat logs, email, IPs. So all of this stuff I had to learn to be able to write a search warrant around. So what I'm hoping I can help with today, and I'd love to learn from everybody here as well, is that obviously at the end of your threat intelligence is what do you do if you do catch the bad guys, right? So that's what I'm hoping we can share and talk about today.
Awesome. And it's an open panel. Nick, how much time do we have? I should find that out now before we get too much further into this.
Roughly 40-45 minutes.
Oh, all right. We have lots of time. Hope that's good. All right. Just a quick show of hands in the room. So, folks in the room, how many of you work in some sort of information security related field? Okay. So, lots of the, I'm going to generalize, lots of the Defcon looking folks. No surprise there. Nick's giving me a funny look. Not so much other folks. So one of the reasons why I think Nick asked me to help facilitate this panel is that security is a huge area of growth in technology. There's demand fast outpacing the number of professionals who are available. And if you like solving problems, or you like digging into what computers can tell you, if you like working with people, or you don't like working with people, there are all those options available to you, and you can make a lot of money doing it. So it's a pretty fun and exciting field right now to be in. there are only, if you look at technical positions, so women only represent about 10% of the workforce. So there's tons of opportunity available, and it is a field where the more diversity you bring into it, the stronger you are from a defense position, because the bad guys and the bad ladies don't limit themselves to any particular demographic, and a lot of them don't think like your corporate folks who've been through, a formal education maybe, or maybe they have. It's all diversity. And that was why we wanted to bring together some different ladies who work in this field, talk about where we've started and why we like what we do, and hopefully that inspires somebody to think about maybe security is a thing for you. And if it's not your thing, that's okay too, but at least we've had a chance to talk about it. So Sarah, I know you've done some work in discussing with women in information security and panels. Do you want to give maybe a little bit of background on, because you talked about coding also as a younger person, what drew you into information security and maybe some of these insights you've had from other women you've talked to as well?
Right, so I'll answer what drew me into security was one word. Somebody told me, my mentor, Victor Ralovich, who ran the program for information security at Sheridan for years now, it's in year 11 since it's been born. He said something when I was completing computer science. I was in my final year, he was my operating system prof, and he goes, you should look into, you should look into Caesar Shift. And I'm like, what's Caesar Shift? I went home, Googled it. Caesar cipher was a classic cipher. I became intrigued. I started writing all my diary entries into Caesar, so nobody would read them. And then I realized it was really easy to break. So I'm like, okay, this is not working out, because I kind of told my son that you just shift everything by 1 over, and he started reading everything. I'm like, this is a terrible cipher, so I shouldn't have done it. So essentially, it was the intrigue of what goes into making something, but I have to lie if I say that. I'm intrigued by what breaks things. I'm intrigued by how to break a control system effectively without getting caught. And I did that for years and years. I don't know if you guys remember Hotmail security. Hotmail did not have one. If you knew the first car somebody drove, you could break into their account. If you knew somebody's mother's maiden name, you could break into that account. I did that for fun until I realized it was illegal. So I stopped. That's where the gray comes in my hat, essentially. Then I broke into Gmail accounts for people who would forget their passwords and say, my aunt would call me and say, I can't get into my account. I'm like, I got this, I'll get into your account for you. Then I realized that was illegal too. So Victor got in touch with me and he said, I know you like security and I know you like breaking things, so why don't you come take the program? This is the challenging part. I was working full-time and there was no way I could go back to school. So I have to say he made an exception and let me take the program part-time. I was the only one who did it. Now many people can do it because I completed the program as a part-time person. I was a consultant on the side, and I enrolled into it and I completed it. So it wasn't accidental. It was very much intentional. Every day I was in that program at least once a month. I thought I was going to fail. The term I thought I was going to fail, everything is when I got all A pluses. I don't know how. Please don't ask me. My work hours were 11 p.m. to 4 in the morning. So yeah, security was definitely a choice.
That's awesome. It's quite the story. Kim, you've had a very interesting journey to information security and where you are now.
Oh yeah, well, I guess help desk is pretty standard entry-level IT stuff, but so several years ago I was working help desk, and although I was working on behalf of the American ISP, only some of our tickets were network connectivity. It was general Windows remoting and over the phone support, and the malware tickets always fascinate me. Even though we're running many of the same applications for removing malware, sometimes I had to fix the mess that the malware left, like broken and messed up Windows registry keys, for instance. And that sort of thing really fascinated me. And also, ever since I was a little kid, I was always into playing around with computers and writing. The wordcraft is very important for getting your ideas across and getting people interested in your ideas. And I got the opportunity to start contributing to InfoSec Resources blog, which is the blog end of the InfoSec Institute. And then I started having my articles show up in CSO and CIO and Computer World. Those are all IDG group publications. And then recently I started contributing to Tripwire's Data Security blog under Joe Petit. He's been an absolutely awesome content director to work for. And Kate Brew of Alien Vault started getting interested in my articles. I will write about anything cybersecurity related, by the way. I really like writing about the sociology of cybersecurity and the human side in general, but frankly, I'll write about anything. So it was great working with Joe and working with Kay, and now I have the opportunity to start contributing to Cylance's blog as well. So a number of different CM vendors. I used to pronounce it SIEM, so now I know how to pronounce it. That's the problem. I can spell a lot more words than I can pronounce. For the longest time, I was saying anecdotal instead of anecdotal. So anyway, and I just love writing, and I always learn as I write and I research, and I'm always learning lots of new stuff every day, every week, constant learning. So, and because it's technology, because our field is technology is moving very rapidly. So we always have to keep on top of the latest and the greatest. So I love being in a field and writing about an area that always keeps me on my toes, definitely.
That's really cool. Lisa, it's a real surprise, I know, but to give us a little bit of your journey, or I think expand on, because you already gave us a little piece.
Right, and I guess I'm also in an industry that is male dominated. I'd say for police service, Toronto Police were probably at around maybe 17% are women. But for me, it was definitely something that I thought was what I wanted to do. I didn't like routine. I wanted to be sometimes outside. I liked the challenge of going out on the road and never knowing what's going to happen. And then later, what I found, what I really loved was the investigative side of things. And I think that's something that we all have in common, that we really like to dig in and to get to the end of something. So whenever something ugly came in, and they all wanted to give it to me, right? Because I had the patience to sort through. For one case, I read 600,000 emails, and those emails were the nail in the coffin. But it took me 6 months, but I just loved it. Every day, I loved reading emails for 6 to 8 hours a day. And because I knew that somewhere in there, it showed the mens rea, right? It showed the state of mind. It showed that he knew what he was selling, or what he was trading, or what he was chatting about. The chat logs were key. The chat logs would take a simple possession of child pornography from 2 years to 3 years, because it shows that what was going on in their minds. So I love that part, the digging part, and new challenges, and I'm really interested in going after the characters you guys are coming up against, because it's a new challenge, and yeah, I've always been in jobs that are, I guess, male dominated. It's simple, and I enjoy it. So.
Oh, yeah. I think what's interesting, so this talk came together fairly quickly. Nick did an awesome job of pulling some wonderful ladies together. We all have really different actual jobs, I think, right now. So I work for a bank, and I've done a number of different roles, from security officer to governance, and now I'm doing design and engineering with our operations team. I was trained as an engineer. And so for those who would go, oh, where's, yeah, that's me. So I like the fact that now that we're trying to take it from just understanding at the computer level to how do we as Cheryl was touching on, how do we express that to the business, so that they invest in controls that help protect their organization. There's some really interesting modeling, and it's still fairly new. Even the insurance companies haven't figured it out yet, although they will take your money. They will happily give you insurance, but it's still a very new area of modeling. So if you're a math person at all, there's a lot of actually really interesting things going on in this. But it's really also a really interesting challenge to think about how do you break down, because there's such a big field of risk related to information security. How do you break it down into different components and then combine them into models that actually make sense and reflect reality in a shifting environment? So it's interesting work in that space. Although I left that behind a couple of years ago to go back to working with computers again. So we do have a lot of really different interests. So I hope that resonates with the crowd too. That information security is a pretty broad field. And we talked about our journey to get here. What are some of the challenges?
I would say that, I mean, there's been a lot of challenges over the years, whether it's dealing with, the biggest difficulty I have is when people don't have the same passion for the job that you do. Dealing with crown attorneys that are too busy or maybe don't care. Dealing with courtrooms that you know, you get a victim all ready to go and you get them through that experience and it's a horrible experience, and how do you get them to you know, trust the system again. Some of those institutional issues that I'm sure all of you maybe deal with as well can be hard. Being tasked with things and not being given the tools, those are the main challenges. Like, you know, I have a new job, new position recently, and I've been doing it since March, and I didn't have a computer until last week. So stuff like that.
Really hard to do information security.
Little challenges, right?
Minor details.
Minor
right?
detail, yeah.
Just remote searches and stuff. You know, just look at the Google. Yeah.
Right, right.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you have a computer.
I have a computer now, yeah.
Okay. So audience participation time. Is anybody brave enough to ask the first question? You can direct it to any one of our panelists or to everyone.
I'll just direct this towards the panel. One thing I'm curious about is, in your journey, how much of the barriers that you encountered were, for lack of better words, self-inflicted or that were in your mind versus actual barriers that you experienced? So, for example, your example of walking into the classroom, you get that comment from the back, versus just the perception of, well, this isn't for me.
So I'll just quickly recap. So coming into this and the challenges we talked about, how many, were the challenges, maybe in retrospect, right? So looking back on it, were they challenges that were there in reality, or were they perceived challenges that, being now looking backwards, you realize were more in your own head?
So yeah, I can go first, if you don't mind. A very concrete challenge that I can think about that was all in my head is somebody in grade 9, a family member told me that you're not good at math. So I failed in grade 10, miserably. I actually failed the final test. And took the test again, completed grade 10. 11, 12 OACs, I had 98%, 98%, 98%. And in the second year, I think in grade 12, my teacher was shaking my hand and giving me a little honorary pen. I don't know if you guys know, that's a thing in Canadian schools. They give you a little pen if you're like a math whiz. And he walked up to me, and I'm like, just keeping my hands down, like, yes, there is no way that pen's coming to me. So he comes over, puts his hand out, and I'm like, surely a mistake. So I shake his hand, and I'm like, thanks. And I wait for everybody to leave, and I go up to him, and I said, Mr. Brownhill, I think you made a mistake. You need to double check my finals. He goes, no. You've had 98% 2 years in a row. And I go, well, I actually don't know how to do math. So I'm not good at it. He goes, well, for getting 98% 2 years in a row, chances are you can handle yourself. So he joked with me, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I can do math. And I'll be honest with you, having written the code to actually do proper cryptography algorithms, not as, I think it was about 6 months ago, we wrote one that caused a collision key for SHA-1, I think it was. We got up to like 6 bits. it was exciting. So somebody had to tell me that you can do math, and before somebody had told me you can't do math, that was self-inflicted. 98% in grade 11 didn't give me any indication that it's okay, I can do math. The following year didn't either, until somebody told me it's okay, you can handle it. So that was definitely mostly in my head.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely excellent question, because we live inside our own heads and sometimes we don't realize how much our subconscious and conscious thoughts control our own behavior. Like Sarah, I've had very similar issues to Sarah, where obviously I already explained. I was told before my age was even the double digits, no, actually I was probably about 10, that my math wasn't very good, even though I actually had a lot of potential. And being told that having good math ability was correlated with being able to pursue a computing career, and you must be a math whiz to do anything related to computers, yeah, that was a definite psychological barrier. Even though I was fixing I was pretty competent at help desk when I was a kid, and I didn't realize it at the time.
I want you to fix my computer. I'm excited about it.
And then there's sometimes, as an adult, there's sometimes the matter of being taken seriously. And as I get further and further into my 30s, it's easier for me to stop worrying about what people think, the way I dress, do I look like a cybersecurity professional, and just be myself and wear what makes me happy and that sort of thing. And I take direction from people in my field all the time. I learn things from people, but I know what sort of feedback to filter out. So.
I am terrible at math, like horrible, and that's actually like a fact. So, I'm trying to think of. I think there's a bit of both. I've probably had a bit of both. I've definitely occasionally had that, afraid of offending people thing that women sometimes do, and I had to advocate for myself quite a few times, especially after maternity leaves, coming back and having to advocate and make sure I got the positions I should have got. But as for the job that I'm starting now, this new program, there's no training for it. I'm literally making up the job as I go along. And I remember talking to this woman in the bathroom, and I was saying to her, kind of challenged by it, I'm kind of nervous about it, there's no training for this. And she said to me, well, if you don't do it, who will? And I stopped and I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, well, who would do it, right? So it was kind of an interesting perspective that she had that I didn't really think about, so.